Always gets a little weird when I do that, and I've tried it before. One thing I learned while doing it, though, for anybody who doesn't know, there's actually like a pro audio setting on Zoom. Zoom by default kind of blocks out background noise, and the guitar qualifies as background noise, I guess, in its native state.
Mhm.
All right. So looks like we got about 13. Hey, Anna. Zita, I'm not sure who I missed so far. Sasha. Anyway, welcome everyone. I think we'll just kind of get going. I've got a ton of material today. I'll explain a little bit about it here as we get through it, but you know, might take a little more than an hour. So, you know, there'll be a recording if you can't make it through the end. But anyway, kind of jump right in. Looks like I'm going to be clicking admit here as we go for a few minutes. So first thing is, I just wanted to know kind of who's on the line here. You know, I've seen some of your your sort of posts in the Heartbeat or whatever, but if you're a coach, will you drop a 1 in the chat? A 2 affiliate, drop a 2, 3 other, and I'd be interested to know what else you're doing, but just kind of know who's here. Thanks, Anna. Yeah, the mustache, I'm putting this on film probably as a mistake. Be here forever. I don't normally have this. Okay, so it's kind of a mix, coaches and affiliates, and one other with Richard.
Can I order right now?
Cool, good. And then quickly, where are you from? Just trying to get a sense of where people are. I know it's probably a lot later for many of you. UK, Finland, cool. Croatia, Serbia, Cyprus, awesome. What an international crowd. Poland, LA, awesome. Love it. Cool. All right. Well, looks like most people are trickling in. This is a great turnout. So, whoops. I don't know how I'm going to manage that. Yeah. So thanks everyone for joining. We're going to jump right in today. This is like, it's going to be how to write content that converts. We're going to talk strategy tactics. I'm going to show you an example of how we bring it together in an actual post. So I'm looking forward to walking you through it. I probably go a little fast through this stuff. Do me a favor, if you have questions in the middle, we'll do questions in chat first, and then at the end of the 3 big sections, we can kind of talk if needed. Just that way, like when you yourselves go to watch replays and stuff, you're not kind of, breaking up the flow and stuff. So definitely drop questions in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that, and then you can maybe pop off mute if there's something we need. I will say one thing: if it is going too fast, you need a clarification question, raise your hand on the Zoom here, drop it in chat, whatever it takes to get my attention. I don't want to go too fast, but like I said, I got a ton of stuff here. So any questions before we get started? All right. Just gonna make sure I have the windows I need here to admit people. Okay. Can you all see the screen? Great. Okay, so welcome to day 5. I guess for most of you, this is a pretty awesome accomplishment that you've made it to day 5. You survived the week. Hopefully it's been awesome. And just kind of jump right in here. I guess just kind of a reminder of where you've come from, and day 5, where we're going here. So you've done mindset with Tommy, strategy with Blake, accountability with Heather, sales with Mike. Now we're on content with me. So yeah, so we're just going to jump right in. Like I said, drop notes in chat if you need anything. All right. So, oh yeah, gonna do a quick introduction of myself. Who is Todd? Aside from someone who refers to himself in the third person, I have a dry sense of humor. Live in the Boston area, married, father of 5. Those are my kids' ages. I started affiliate marketing in January of 2020. So going on 3 years ago, I kind of started the online journey. I sold exactly $0 for the first 5 months that I was in the space. Finally made my first score, and it was a grand total of $142, even though I was trying to sell high ticket the whole time. I stumbled on this. I did have a little bit of success build up after that, where I was making some sales and it was fine, but I just realized that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing the way I was doing it. Needed to change my approach. So I shifted to really focusing on content. And I just decided I was going to figure out how to make that be my thing. I like writing. So that's how it happened. And since then, I've sold about 30K of my own offers, sort of products and services, really like masterclasses and workshops, stuff like that. So it just gives you some context where I'm coming from. During that process, I became the Unleash CEO's content and copywriting coach. That reminds me, I put this on today especially. So I had the team Unleash CEOs, forgot to unveil it. So there we are. Been doing it for 15 months, which is crazy. Time flies, as they say. Done over 210 content video reviews. So in the Unleash CEOs, the 6FA program, I do support for the clients who are in there and help them review and understand kind of feedback for their content. I'm also a data guy, so I grabbed some of my numbers. Average review time for the videos is 19 minutes. Total hours over that 15 months is about 66 hours of customer feedback. So I'm not telling you that for any reason other than to know what it means for you, which is I've seen a bunch of themes accumulate over these many customers, over all the video reviews and all these hours of feedback. So what I've tried to do is put in this performance presentation, the stuff that I think is like truly important. Like I said, I put a lot in here. We'll see how we get through it in the next 50 minutes or so. But yeah, hopefully it's all of what you need here. I mean, I guess before I put too much weight on what's in here, the one thing I will say is I think all the information is in here that you need. There's no substitute for practicing. When it comes to writing content, it just, you have to practice. You have to find your own voice, your own styles, eventually it's going to be your own frameworks, things like that. But practice makes perfect. So here we go. Okay. Yeah. So the agenda. So what's in the deck? I already sort of talked about this, but here it is sort of in print. We're going to talk a little bit strategy, big picture, like what is this content thing about, tactics, kind of how do we do it? And then I'm going to show you an example that brings it together. Yeah, and I saw Anna's quote there about no substitute for practicing. She's been a great student practicing ton. It's actually it's people like her that really demonstrated to me the value of practice and just getting feedback. So pretty awesome stuff. All right, we're on to the strategy. So within the strategy section, we've got 4 components here. What is the purpose of content? What do you sell? How does content help you sell? And then we'll talk a little bit about the perfect post, which I'm sure you're going to be really excited about. So what is the purpose of content? I'm dragging this one out for you. You can dress it up, you can dance around it, you can pretend that it's something else, but if you don't understand the purpose of your content, you'll stay stuck. Purpose of content is to sell something. Okay, so each individual post could have a different objective, but in the end, the cumulative effect of your posts are to be marketing messages that help you sell something. My experience is that your content most of the time should be driving people towards your solution. And if you're in the earlier stages, you should be limiting it to 1 or 2 things. Ideally, it's 1 if you're really just getting started. In my mind, there are other approaches, but when you're writing stuff, you want to be writing about one thing. You want to be pushing people to a single point, a single product or service in this case. So if you're not doing that and you're just writing posts all the time, I call you a creative writer, and hopefully it's creative at least. But if you're not getting paid for it, what's the point, basically? So what I've seen, particularly in these last 15 months, and I was also, I would say, sort of guilty of it myself early on, is you just lose sight of that. You kind of forget what these posts are about. People think maybe they're about engagement or something else. And I wrote a couple of things. Some people are afraid of selling, which I get. Kind of was that way myself when I started. But I think we can and should do this on social media without being salesy. You don't have to, be a pushy link spammer to make this work. So kind of a takeaway from this piece is just marketing content should make people aware of a gap in their life and offer a remedy. I think it's a very simple sentence that makes a really important point. You're not writing for any purpose really other than to make people to kind of connect with people on a level that helps them understand their problems and can help them solve it. And this is easier said than done, but I wrote it in here because I wanted to emphasize, learn to do this unapologetically. It's not easy to be a salesperson in print, and especially on social media, everybody's, doing various versions of, hey, look at me, buy my stuff. But the art really is learning to do this in a way that you feel good about. And
Right.
And without apology, you don't have to at some point you want to get comfortable being a marketer on purpose. All right. So what do you sell? On to the next section here. If you're not clear on the promises of your product or service, you will fail. I've seen lots of people, come up short because they don't actually know what they're writing about. And if you're not clear, your writing won't be clear, your audience can't be clear, and a confused reader will never buy. That's almost, I think I'll call it a guarantee. You want people to be crystal clear about what it is they're getting from you. And so, I just wrote in here, keep it simple, latch on to those key promises like a rabid dog and never let go. It's probably one of the biggest sticking points. I have that on here. One of the biggest sticking points that I've seen is just, people write posts and they're kind of all over the place. There's some nice value in there. There's some nice lifestyle, there's results, there's, engagement posts, whatever, but they're scattered. They're not really driving people towards the promises that matter. So, I think in the comments, if you wouldn't mind, just let me know if that makes sense or if there are questions, because this one's worth making sure. Thanks, Diane. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Okay, cool. So with that in mind, I just put together a little example for the six-figure accelerator. Couldn't be simpler. The six-figure accelerator program in this context, the way I'm thinking about it, it's an organic social media sales and marketing coaching program. If that's all you had, you could probably work with it to do your writing. I would like you to get more specific so that you can be more specific in your writing. And the way I think about it is it's comprised of these 5 kind of main components in terms of, it talks about strategy, sales, content, mindset, accountability. There's a coach for each of those areas. We emphasize those. If I was writing about this, and I do sometimes, you can pick the high level angle that this is, a broad set of promises, or you could isolate these. You could pick 1, 2, 3, whatever. You could do it your own way. And like for me, if I were just an affiliate for 6FA at this point, I probably would focus on the content. I would just say, I wouldn't disregard the other stuff because it's important to what this program is, but I would make my emphasis on content. And I would just say, I learned stuff from Blake, whatever it is, in other people's case, if you learn from me, you can use that. And here's the key thing that I'm learning, and this is why. But my point here is not to tell you how to sell this program, but more to say, this is how you think about it. So you say, okay, I understand this promise. I relate to it. It helps me. I can help people with it. I can facilitate that, whether it's your own coaching program or an affiliate thing. You've got to find, the key promises that are made. Basically you can use everything. You can pick narrow promises. The narrower the promise, the easier it is to deliver and write about. But at the same time, people are looking for bigger transformations. So you have to balance that. But hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, stop me here, chats. But just wanted to point out, like, this is where you can be, this is where the creativity comes in terms of figuring out ideas to write about. Like, if you are an affiliate and a bunch of other people are selling the same thing, you want to find a way to stand out. And this is where practice comes in, actually. Like, you have to do the writing sometimes to figure out what you're good at. Like, you may do a bunch of writing, and I've known one of my good friends, online, was exactly this way. He hated writing. He became such a good salesman, through his online work, that he took an offline gig that just he was making so much money that he didn't have time or interest to do the side hustle. But he got really clear that writing wasn't for him, so he would do just enough writing to address that, and then steer people constantly to his messenger and call chat programs and things like that. So I guess I will take a breath here. I hope that makes sense, and maybe just give me a thumbs up or something, a 1 if you're good. Let me know if you want me to say any more about that. Cool. I guess I didn't give you an option if the answer is no. If it's no, just say no. All right, I think we're good here. Again, we'll address that. We'll follow up one more time. So yeah, I think we're good. So, okay. So now, how does content help you make sales? I'm going to fly through this too. I'm going to get to the next slide, this part. So how does it? It's content helps move your audience from cold strangers to buyers by increasing awareness and trust. It's kind of a mouthful. The last line is the one that matters to me. Increasing awareness and trust is what we're trying to do with our content. So this is something that you've probably seen if you've been around marketing for any length of time. Eugene Schwartz's 5 stages of customer awareness. There's 5 of them here. The unaware stage means they don't know of a problem or a desire to have it fixed. Problem aware, they know they have a problem, but they don't know about solutions. Solution aware, they know there's a solution, but they don't know specific products. Product aware, they know that the product exists, but they don't want it yet. And then most aware means they know your product and they know they want it. And so, we really want to move people, from left to right, basically. Ultimately, you want them to be here knowing that they want your product specifically. I added this to it to say that most of your content is going to address the 3 middle stages. We're improving awareness. I put a red X on unaware. For Facebook posts, I would never write to this person. I wouldn't write to somebody who has no idea they have a problem or that they would want to solve it. You can, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I just don't think that's, when I picture somebody reading my stuff, it's not going to be this person. And then on the right side, I put it as a yellow X because I would say it's not a never. Here, you want to give people an opportunity to buy, like you could think about that, where they know they want your product. This is like offer posts, this is Black Friday sales, this is things like that, where I think you probably are speaking to the most aware people as well as others. But in general, you're focused on the middle section here on these 3 stages. I'll trust you guys to drop comments if you have questions here. So I'm going to move on. Oh, right. So here's trust. I came up with an alliterative way to describe it. Todd's trust tripod. There's 3 angles of trust here that I think are important to address in your writing. So they want to trust you as an authentic and relatable human being, basically, like a likable person. Oops. They want to trust you as a knowledgeable, skilled person who can deliver the transformation they desire. So not only are you kind of a cool person that they like or whatever, you actually know what you're talking about, and you can help get people from where they are today to where they want to go tomorrow, kind of thing. And then the last piece, and this can be difficult. I would say this is the most difficult piece for sure. They need to trust that they can actually do what you're asking of them. So if they know and like you in the top one, and they believe that you can teach them, how to walk a tightrope in the circus, that's great. But if they're like terrified of heights or not, whatever, terrified of heights, like they just might not be able to do it. And I think that happens more than people think. And it's something to keep in mind as you write content, stories of like, you can do it too. It's great if you can do it with social proof or whatever. But basically, how, showing that they can also do this is where I'm getting at. All right, cool question here, Rob. Yeah, they need to believe in themselves. Rob, I don't actually understand your question. They ignore the potential. Is this related to the trust? You can pop off mute real quick if you want.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
No, I was thinking somebody who, they're doing their 9 to 5. The only way they can ever see of making more money is overtime, but they've got family commitments, etc., etc. So they never look at any way of making money. So in a way, they're almost unaware of the problem because they just don't see it as a problem. They just see it as that's the way things are.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So were you talking about the 5 stages? Yeah. Yep. No, 100%. I think that's exactly right. And again, like I said, there's probably a time and a place to address these people. But I think for our purposes, when you're trying to be efficient, I'm sure most people are doing this on the side. And regardless, you want to be efficient with your time. I just don't focus on anything left of problem aware when I think of my reader.
Yeah, it's the same. I'm thinking both affiliate marketing and coaching. So, a lot of people don't understand what coaching is, so they don't even see it as a, they don't have that desire to solve their problem through coaching. They don't actually know they've got a problem.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, anyway. Okay, thanks.
Sure thing. Yeah. Okay, cool. So the moment you've all been waiting for, the perfect post doesn't exist. Sorry for the setup, but I think it's really important. This is something that I run across with clients all the time. And this is the message I want to say. One post will not change your life. Now, you could probably look at certain posts and say that one changed my life because it, brought in 1,000, 10,000, whatever it is. But where I'm going with this is it's the cumulative effect of how you entertain, educate, and persuade your audience that really matters. So don't overthink any single post. You've got to build up a collective body of work to make a difference here. And the value of content, to me, the way I think of it broadly is like in leveraging reach, right? Like to increase awareness and build trust with a person in Messenger, you can only do so many of those per day. Versus like if you wanted to do 10 of those in Messenger, it would take whatever, an hour at least, I would think, right? That gives you 6 minutes per person. That's not a ton of time, but you can get 10 readers of a post in seconds once you post it. And so that's what I mean by leveraging reach. It's also really great for crystallizing your own thinking. I put together this slide presentation. It's collective of some things I've done in the past, but also my latest thinking on it. And the more you do of this stuff, the stronger you become as a thinker and a leader, which is the next line, demonstrating authority and leadership. You start actually knowing what you're talking about by having clear thinking, and reps and expertise, that sort of thing. And then it also can turn into mini assets. These posts, even though they disappear from the feed pretty quickly, like if you write something that's great, it'll kind of live on in people's minds. It'll live on in the algorithm for a while. If you have a group, they can, you can pin a post on your profile. If you have a group, they can become a guide or whatever. Like you could eventually collect the best ones into an ebook or whatever. Like there's all kinds of things that content can become. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. And I sort of addressed this with leveraging reach, but content is the fastest way to market, but it's not necessarily the fastest way to sell. So like what I'm trying to say here is, don't expect one offer post that you go make after this class to be the one that do it, right? You got to do the work. You got to move your audience along. You got to build the trust. It will take time, but it's really valuable time if you do it right. Yeah. So in other words, keep writing. All right. So the key strategy takeaways here from this section: purpose of content is to sell something. Must understand the promised transformations of your product in order to write clearly. Content should increase audience awareness, benefits of your product too. That's something I didn't really mention before, but that's the flip side of, the problem is what's your solution, and then increase the trust. One post will not change your life. Keep writing. Okay. So we can take a quick pause here. That's the strategy section. Any questions or comments? All right, cool. So how do I actually write content that converts? So we're going to jump into the tactics, the hows. There's 3 sections here: 2 key post principles, post objectives, and a post framework. So the principles, there's 2 of them. One, and we'll talk a little bit more about the framework in a minute, but one is to elicit an emotional response. So you want your reader to feel something. Another way you could say this is don't be boring. But I like this version because the emotional response, you're looking to build a connection with your reader. And there's a couple things that I like to focus on. One is feelings, 2 is shifting beliefs. Like I put story in gray there because it fits our framework that we'll talk about later. But like through the story component of your post, this is how you can shift beliefs and address feelings with people and become a person, that increases the awareness and trust at the same time. And then the second piece is direct the reader to take an action. So our posts, I actually highlighted this. This is like a super key takeaway from this whole conversation, from everything that I've done in my 15 months of coaching, even for my own reminders when I write stuff. Like we're trying to get an emotional response and direct them to take an action. So I'm pounding the table on this one. Buy on emotion, justify with logic, Rob. That's right. And that matters specifically in an offer situation, but also, in non-offers. Not every post, even if you're directing them to take an action, doesn't mean you're selling something in that moment. It may be, go to bed earlier. It may be lift weights. It may be jump on a call, leave a comment below, whatever. But if you've made an emotional response from the reader, there's more likelihood that they're going to take that action. So, all right, post objective. So when you go to write a post, there's a couple things that we want to be doing. If you can do them all at once, great. But if not, at least pick one. Shifting beliefs was the key. Like when Blake and I started about the same time in 2020. I think he was a little ahead of me, but we were on a similar path, and he got ahead of me pretty quickly. And I went to him at some point for some coaching. And I was actually kind of mad. I was like, people are saying I do pretty good writing. and I agree from what I can tell, but I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I don't know what I'm writing about anymore. And at some point in the conversation, he was like, you want to shift beliefs. And as soon as that light bulb went off for me, everything changed. That's when I started, my content, people were really responding to it. People were coming to me. I started creating my own offers built around it, stuff like that. So I can't say enough about the value of shifting beliefs. You want to take people from where they are to where they want to go, or where you want them to go, actually, in this case. So there's a couple things to think about when you address this. What are from your actual content, what are 3 things that someone must believe in order for them to buy whatever your solution is? There's a flip side of this. Sometimes they're the exact opposite, but sometimes they're not. But in a content course, for example, a simple belief is that content is important to marketing is important to sales, something like that. The flip side of that one would just be like, they can't, I'm not going to be selling to people who think that, like my buddy I mentioned earlier in the call, I wasn't going to sell content to him. He did not want to learn to be a great marketer in terms of that kind of writing. He was focused on sales, so he wasn't going to be my core audience. And then I wanted to mention, there is this belief shifting framework that's in your workbook. I think it's the last page of it. That's part of the homework. I'm not going through the framework because it's very self-explanatory, but it's a nice little way to step through where people are today, and how to get them to think differently in a sort of content perspective. Oh, and I put the value note here. Shifting beliefs is largely about value. It's like, gosh, I don't know. I can't even think of anything, but I guess I'll flip the other ones up and maybe we can come back to that point. So another option for post objective could just be to establish your authority. You can do this through like a results post, like I made money, or hit a new personal best in your fitness program, or whatever it is. Results of some kind. They definitely do not have to be monetary and should not always be monetary. And you can also do it with value posts if you're the expert on the Facebook algorithm or something else, which, by the way, I'd be skeptical if you claimed expertise over the algorithm, but I used to do that a little bit with my data. Not that I was an expert in the algorithm, but I did do a bunch of tracking of engagement on my posts and time of day and stuff like that. So I had some expertise that was related that I could leverage there. And then this build, know, like, and trust is kind of back to the trust tripod, really, for me. But this is largely lifestyle posts. I think about this. It doesn't have to be exclusively. Like, you can literally do all 3 of these things in one post. But for those who are familiar with the results, value, lifestyle, or what is it, RVL? Yeah, or RLV. I don't remember how we called it, but these are the categories that fit. So value, shifting beliefs, you're going to tell people something that is different than they already believe, and you've got to be convincing with something of value to make that happen. Cool. I'll have to check that out, Rob. I've not seen that, or heard that, I should say. All right. Okay, on to another important piece. So I actually created this framework for myself based on, actually, I think it came from Ben Settle's newsletters. I just realized that every time I sat down to write, at some point I was like, I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel every time. And I didn't know kind of how to have a beginning, middle, and an end. And so I created this framework, and it's super simple. And that's the intention, for it to be simple. So there's a headline, there's a hook in every post that I write, there's a story, this is the bulk of my writing. And then there's a closing section, usually with call to action, that covers like 15%. So I put a highlight here too, because I think of all the things to keep in mind. These are the two big ones. The key post principles in this are like just critical to the way I do post writing. So we'll talk a little bit about the elements of this framework coming up here, and then I'll show you in an example how it looks. I guess any questions before we move on this one? forgot. I'm trusting that you'll hit the comments. That's how we'll do this. Okay, so headline. This is where we are in the framework. I love this quote from Eugene Schwartz in Breakthrough Advertising. Your headline has only one job: stop your prospect and compel him to read the second sentence of your ad. So in this case, it should be post, but same basic idea. So there's 7 headline elements here that I pulled from Stefan Georgi, who wrote this for sales letters as opposed to Facebook posts and emails. I think Facebook posts and emails need to be a little shorter than a Facebook post or an email, shorter than a sales letter. So he's got 7, but I'm leaving the number 1 up here first because I think in Facebook posts and maybe every headline that you use, if you can infuse some curiosity into it, you have a much better chance of getting people to stop the scroll and see what you have to say. I could say a lot more about this. I hope it's like self-evident. If people are curious to read more, they'll read more. And that's really like, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but I think it's the one that I would always aim for. So I'll flip through the other things. I think these next 2 are ones that you might be able to also squeeze into a post headline, one or the other, usually not both, because you just get so many words eventually. But you either call out a pain point with curiosity or promise some kind of benefit, 5 minutes to 5 months of content, right? Like it's got some curiosity and it's got a benefit in it. And then some of the other ones that Stefan has, I'll just pop these on here. Specificity, I think this is much more important to a sales letter, but I guess in the one that I just mentioned, it is kind of specific with 5 minutes to 5 months of content or whatever I said. Keeping it simple is always important. You don't want to confuse people for the reasons I said before. Confused readers won't stick around very long. Have credit, you can increase credibility or address skepticism, and then a time frame to achieve the results of the promise. I guess my 5 minutes to 5 months of content covers more than I thought here. It's specific, it's got a time frame. So that's probably a pretty good way to start it. You can't always do that, and you don't always want a list, a list thing of 5 blah blah blahs. But anyway, so that's from Stefan. So this is more of a framework to refer back to when we're not together. You can watch this on the video replay or in the slides. Check it out. It's just good to refer back to from time to time. In terms of process, I thought I'd share this with people because I think this is a huge sticking point. I almost never write my headline first. If I do, it's because I had something super inspired and you can build around it. But more often than not, I have a story that I want to tell that I'm going to tie into my marketing message. And once I've written that, I'll be able to go back and say, oh, here's a cool line or a cool thing to reference that's got some curiosity. You got the end result. I usually write it last is what I'm saying. And I guess I just said that part. You find an element in what you've already written to kind of emphasize. And then the last thing is, and this is really important, I don't do it as much as I used to, and I didn't do it when I started like I was told to, and I wish I had, and every time I do it, I'm glad that I do. Right? 3 to 5 headlines that are kind of different. Don't edit yourself as you're writing them. Just let whatever pops out kind of pop out, and you'll eventually find something way better than what you started with. It's a simple concept, but headlines are pretty important. So it's worth taking just a couple extra minutes to do this. All right, cool. On to the hook. So the hook, is for the purposes of Facebook posts. If you Google the hook, you'll find some different things. A lot of people refer to it as kind of it kind of blends in with the unique mechanism sometimes for the way writers think and talk about it. It's supposed to be this kind of massively like unique thing that draws people in or whatever. But for me, I just think of it as the first line or two after your headline. that continues the curiosity and draws people in. So a great hook makes people think, whoa, I got to see how this one ends, you know, and in conjunction with a curiosity headline, this is how I try to build my posts. So it's concept or an idea that gets people interested in what you have to say and what you have to offer. And the point here of these first couple lines, you know, headline and hook lines, are if people don't read your posts, all the time you spend on them is wasted, right? You can be the best storyteller, but if you can't get those first two items covered, then you have no readers. So the headline and hook are important. It's important to be to evolve here and like get better at those elements, you know, the curiosity and the things that kind of belong in a hook. So I pulled some guidelines from Alan, but here's some of the overview basically. So number one, not clickbait. Like I do want you to be sensational in a smart way. You know, in a like a legitimate way. You want to be dramatic. You don't want to be boring, but you don't want to intentionally mislead people, and that's really important. I don't see that very often with like my crowd, but it's definitely out there. So some of the categories you can get ideas from for your hooks: threats, warnings, pain. Like people want to avoid pain like nobody's business. So if you can address a pain that they're going to avoid or something that they might be concerned about, it's a great part of a hook. If you can educate or give them an FYI, that's cool. You know, the progression of that one hopefully is, if you want to know more about what I've told you, read the rest of my post, kind of thing. Confirm or challenge beliefs. We kind of talked about this earlier. This is the start of shifting beliefs. You can do this right in your hook if you want to, you know, start the process of kind of confirming what people already think, which will get them to be like, you know, potentially be aligned with you and your way of thinking. Or if you challenge them, they're like, oh, I'm going to read this to the end and prove them wrong. FOMO, fear of missing out. This is kind of like everybody else is doing it. So that's another idea for a hook category. And then relevancy. I think of this as current events, like what's going on in the world. Like World Cup right now would be, you know, a great piece of a hook and probably headline to write about, because everybody knows that's happening, and that's an idea. So as I said, source definitely borrowed from Alex, and like there's a little more detail in the slides that you'll get, but in the interest of time, we're going to move on. Reminder, feel free to comment if you have any questions along the way. And hi, Blake. So headlines and hooks. I put a few on here just as examples because I think it's much easier to see than it is to kind of explain without seeing. So this is actually from a single post that I did talking about the difference between headlines and hooks, because somebody asked me at one point. And I was like, man, this is actually hard to explain. So thought I'd throw a few out here. So real quickly, headline, you can see I bolded it in this case in my post. The difference between a headline and a hook. And then the hook section here is get this wrong and it'll never work. This alone could be considered the hook, but I'm including the second line in the way I think about it. It's the sort of the hook section. I swiped the hook line above, and I'll explain why in a minute. Open the loop to get people to, you know, hopefully they want to know the difference. And then they also want to know, like, why did I swipe this line? And they read the rest of the post. And then this is just the examples that are in that post. So you got a headline here. The one thing that's, and I pulled these from my email because I thought these, you know, I pulled them for people who do good jobs with their email writing. So just quick examples. The one thing that separates all seven figures offers, that's the headline. The hook was get this wrong and it'll never work, which is what I swiped up here from Joel Irway. Ian Stanley had a headline, "Do not click the link if you're easily offended." Like, this is a great one. It's a challenge. Most people, like, I think you almost always, there's low risk of opening an email that tells you not to do something, and you kind of want to see what the challenge is. So I love the headline. And then the hook here is, decided to do an experiment, might end up lasting the rest of my life. I'm starting a comedy email list. So for me, I already liked Ian Stanley. I had to read on to see what it was all about. It was a great combo. The last one was from Ryan Moran. How did this filmmaker have $10 million exit in ecom, plus how to boost your sales 2 to 4x? Hopefully these make sense. You can kind of see the slight distinction between the headline and the hook. Yeah. Okay, so take a quick breath. I don't see any questions. We'll jump into the story section. I guess what I want to say here, the story section here, I already mentioned, this is like the bulk of your post. If you use this framework, this is where you get that emotional response from people by telling something. I generally like the personal stuff. And I contrast that with like traditional value posts that say, oh, here's how you, let's just say it's how you write headlines and hooks, right? Like a value post of how you do it isn't bad necessarily, but you're unlikely to get an emotional response. I call that textbook writing. You're writing a textbook. You're telling people how to do stuff, but they're probably not going to have an emotional reaction to the how-tos all by themselves. You need something concrete. So that's my plea to you. This is make it emotional somehow. Make it. And I say this a lot too. Make it something that AI couldn't write. Something unique to me as an individual. Just something simple. I've got 5 kids, right? You got that from the beginning of my intro. AI could come up with that on its own and make it up, but like, I want the things that are specific to you as a person in these stories as much as possible. And I would say as much as comfortable, but I would even challenge that and say as much as slightly uncomfortable, because the stuff that you think is like uncomfortable to put out there, most people are like, cool. Now I know you better. That's cool. And a lot of times the edges are the things that really align you strongly with your kind of, true fans, so to speak. So again, this is a framework that you can refer to when we've parted ways here. I will explain it in a second, but I've adapted it from Russell Brunson's. I forget even what I did. I think he had 8 or 9 steps, and I just kind of blended a couple of them in a way that made more sense to me. And this is, I mentioned earlier, like when I used to sit down to write, at one point I was like, I don't know how to do this. I just don't know where I'm going. I love frameworks because now I fill in the blanks. And that's what I would encourage you to do here. And so one way to like look at this is the backstory. And you can do this like these 7 steps are not like 700 pages or anything like that. You can do each one in 1 sentence if you want to, sometimes even less. Like you can put both of them in a sentence together. Backstory is giving context, background, a reason to care. The desire is just basically what's the main character want in this story. And what you'll notice with steps 3 and 6 here, there's a wall and there's a conflict, is it gives this little bit of undulation to your story. If you just go straight line from, I wanted $1 million to I got $1 million, that's going to be boring. It's cool, whatever, but there's no emotion most likely in that story if you go straight line. So it's like, what got in your way? What stopped you from getting it? There's epiphany. This is the light bulb moment. This is like a big turning point. Like, to get my $1 million, I knew I needed to, start an e-com store or whatever it was. And then the plan, course of action to achieve this desire through the epiphany. The conflict, this is where I'm talking about the up and down. It can't be easy. If it's easy, it's boring. It's not going to be as exciting to the reader. So you're creating tension in your story. And when you practice this stuff, you'll find it's a lot easier than it may sound. There's lots of ups and downs in our daily lives and in these stories anyway. So it's actually not that hard. And then at the end, the transformation is your victory. Like this is the achievement. So don't see questions. I'm going to actually show you one example kind of just laid out, so you can refer back to the framework and what it is, and then kind of think about this for your own self. This is just my affiliate, my origin story. This is from back in the day, right? Like when I started. And I've written about this before. And even though there's like one, just short lines here, this can be as long or as short as you want it to be. I can go way back in my background, my backstory, talk about like my careers in data and analytics with zero marketing background, but my job, wasn't everything I wanted it to be. I was looking to find control and freedom. That's the desire. That's what I wanted. The wall was I couldn't choose a niche. Like for a while I was like, oh, I'll just recreate my data and analytics work as an independent consultant. Then I realized that I didn't want to recreate my day job on the side. And then I really got stuck. And so I was spinning my wheels literally for years, couple years trying to figure out what to do. And then one day, Russell Brunson popped into my feed, my news feed, or like just actually, maybe it was Facebook, I don't know. But I saw One Funnel Away advertisement, and I was like, whoa. And I didn't know anything that affiliate marketing even existed. So that was my epiphany. I was like, I'm in, this makes sense. I don't need to choose a niche. I'll learn to market and sell online. I can go from there. And then, I got into the program, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be a ClickFunnels affiliate, and that's my key to success. Then I had a conflict where I was like, shoot, everybody else is doing this. It's going to cost me a bunch of money to be in ClickFunnels every month. I was like blown away. I was really high once I got into the plan level, and then I quickly went crashing. I was like, crap, I can't do this. Like, I still don't get it. I wasn't ready, cost too much, all kinds of stuff in the conflict. And the transformation was I found a different program. It was a Super Affiliate Accelerator at that point. It changed everything. So hopefully this example makes the framework really clear. You can do this all day long with any story. Sometimes I'll find that maybe I don't have a conflict, like, or maybe the wall, like you might get rid of one of these. Like, don't overthink it, but use this framework if you're stuck with how to tell a good story. Thanks, Blake. Oh, I left this one in. I'm not going to talk about it. We're running long, but this is another one you kind of just see an idea of a story that was lessons from an electric toothbrush. I'm going to move on though. It'll be in the deck. Got a little bit left, so I want to make sure we get through this. Okay, so calls to action. So this is the last section of your post. You use most of your word count here in the story section, but yeah, Richard, the thanks, Sita. Oh, thanks. All right, cool. Yeah, these slides will go into the members area. They're not there yet, but they will be. Okay, so the closing section then is like, it could be 5%, it could be 15%, whatever, but it's like, this is winding down your story. This is where you transition and say, I've just told you the story. I'm going to connect it to the marketing message. And now here's what I want you to do. So that's what's going on here. Directing the reader to take an action. I'm going to remind you forever to think about what you sell. In your posts, be clear and specific what you're selling. Be consistent. Be consistent over time. I would much rather see you talk about one product 5 times than 5 products one time over the course of a week or something. Most people don't have 5 products, but I just wanted to make the point, like, not only is it okay, I encourage you to be consistent. You don't have to, in every post, say, buy product X or buy my coaching service. Like, that doesn't mean you have to do that. But even if you're not saying buy my service, you should still always be shifting beliefs around that service and directing people towards that same conclusion of they want to talk to you to find out more about what you do because they know exactly what you do. They have a problem with that thing and they're interested in learning more about it. And in these calls, actions is something that I think
Recording in progress.
possible. So while everyone else is buying stuff this Friday, this was a Black Friday thing. Remember, the fastest way to get where you want to go is to buy risk-free ROI on sales. So that this star line kind of doesn't make as much sense by itself. The whole post was about risk-free ROI. And then in this, testing a different way to do it. I did a PS, my Black Friday new offer pre-launch starts tomorrow. Specific ROI on sale to claim one of the 10 spots before they're gone. So there's some scarcity in that one that says one of 10 spots. So we are getting close to the end. I've got the example section coming up, but any questions on this one? This one's super important and not the easiest to just get without practice, but any thoughts on calls to action beforehand? Awesome. Thanks, Diane. There's still one more section coming. All right. So the key takeaways on tactics. This is review. Elicit an emotional response, direct reader to take an action, shift beliefs, establish authority, and or build know, like, and trust. Those are the objectives. The post framework talked about there. Headline, hook, story, call to action. That's it. Okay, quick pause. Any questions, comments before we jump into the examples? All right. Okay, so I wrote a post in an offer that I had done at one point. It was a content course, and part two was so it was a workshop, I think, and I wanted to give people I wanted people to see that how it works live, and that you didn't have to have these Return of the Jedi magnitude stories. You could just make a story out of, and I was actually explaining to them as I was talking, and I was like, I was walking my dog this morning and I walked into a spider web. I could write a post about that, and it could be useful. And then they took me up on the challenge and said, okay, write a post about that. So that's where this came from. But I wanted you to have the background because, you find simple stories. Finding simple stories is going to be much easier and actually more fun for people, in my opinion, than trying to craft these, I don't know, super intense stories. That's hard. You can't do that every day on short time. So this is about me walking into a spider web face first. So I put the link in here. Again, you'll be able to go look at the post if you want, but this is the entire post, I think. Yeah. Just so you can see it, but I'm going to flip over so you can actually read a little bit of it here. And now we're not going to read the whole thing, but it'll give you some ideas about how it all came together in the frameworks that we talked about. So it starts off with the spider web epiphany as my headline. that's a fine headline. You know, if you talk about curiosity, there's some in there because like what would a spider web epiphany even mean? But it's a little light on specifics or promises or whatever. So it's I give it a, you know, a C for the headline quality, but functional. Then we go into this hook section that it's really 2 lines in my mind. It says, "Blech, another spider web to the face. This time I got it in my mouth. I mean, I had to laugh." So I will admit, I love that hook way too much. You know, for some reason, I can still picture walking into that damn spider web for like the 3rd or 4th time in a row. Like it was like every day he'd restring, I'd walk through it. Spider was definitely winning. But to me, that's like, it's real life. I don't look at this and think, God, here comes Todd going to try to sell me something again with another one of his annoying posts. Like, this is a story that I want to read the way I think about it. And so the story section comes in here, and I don't break out the Epiphany Bridge stuff, but you can kind of see it. You can see it starts with a backstory. Like, I walk my dog every morning after my writing session, peaceful time with man's best friend. I added some notes here. You know, the story is essentially me walking my dog and walking into a spider web. In general, it's as authentic as I can be. It's very much casual in my voice. You know, I try to be funny. You know, not to be a comedian, but try to keep it light, stuff like that. So that's kind of what's in the story. Yeah, and you know, there's some pain in here. This is a little bit longer than some I would write, but talks about some of the, right. So the transition here is like I should walk around the telephone pole and avoid the spider web. And here's the transition, got me thinking about my online experience. And basically I kind of talked about some of the pain that I experienced there. And then where is it? I should have highlighted this. I don't know, it's somewhere in here, but again, we get to it at the end where it says, you know, in the call to action, it's like, rip that spider web off your face, you know, kind of like it's been built up through the pain points. And then the closing says, you know, if you've been struggling with your content, want to learn how to shift beliefs and rip that spider web off your face, you know, this offer is what you've been looking for. And then I add some details. Okay, that's it. That's the example. Any questions or comments on that? This is supposed to tie it together. You know, the frameworks are in here, the headline, the hook, the emotional, you know, the eliciting emotional responses to get people to laugh about walking into a spider web. I got kind of serious about, you know, struggling. Like I was legit thinking about wanting to quit, you know, doing online marketing. You know, funny, I mentioned even in this post, like the key change for me, you know, the key belief that shifted was the importance of shifting beliefs, kind of inception like. So, all right, cool. I'm gonna move on. Thanks for the feedback there, people. Appreciate it. Yeah, great. You know, and I will say, Diane just said gonna start writing stories. I mean, I could not encourage it more. You know, it's a little more work, I guess, than, you know, colored background posts and quotes, but it's gonna get you so much further along for all the reasons we talked about. The one thing I will say is, you know, you can look at my timeline, posts are public. You can scroll back and see some examples of how, you know, how this all works. If you don't have enough, like, what does it look like? But I think these frameworks and this idea should get you where you want to go. So thanks, Doug. I want to remind you to submit your homework to earn that one-on-one audit session. And I put this in here. I mentioned it earlier in the what do you call it? Presentation, but I dropped this in here just so you could see it, because we didn't talk about the belief shifting framework, but this is credit to Blake on this one, where this came from. But you can fill this out and it's really nice. You know, what beliefs does my current target have? How's it affecting them? Any stories related to how this has affected you in the past? So this could be, you know, like the story that you could use. What's the new belief you want them to see? What are the benefits to them? And what action do you want them to take? Like, this is a really simple way to get through the belief shifting part of your content. So that was pretty good. You might notice here, we're on slide number 65 and we did it in about 65 minutes. So that's, I'm impressed. So my call to action to you all is go forth and write great things. Anything else? I got a few minutes here. I got about probably 7 minutes.
Can you put it in my maths?
Why?
Because
All right. How about this? I would love to see. I got Diane. She's going to write more stories. Any like, I'd love to see just one takeaway. I'd love to know what kind of, takeaways you got. Like, what's one thing that just like you can use or you're going to do differently than you've been doing. I'd love to see or hear that. Is Blake still on? We lost him. Richard, I'll have to get back to you on that. In terms of the critiques, we do that in 6FA. I'll see what I can come up with. Motivated to create more stories. Good. Clear on headline and hooks. Yeah, it's interesting. The headline thing was a challenge for me for a while. I mean, it still is actually. Headlines, I would say, the hardest part. To make it interesting, have curiosity, try to do something that gets people certainly interested to read more is definitely a challenge still for me. Cool, Doug. Yeah, I'm glad it was helpful. It is. The hook is also, headline and hook are the harder parts. It's much easier for me to write a story now than it is the other two parts. Write on life based on life experiences and turn them into marketing messages. That's perfect. That isn't it. Like, I hope everyone gets that takeaway. There's a whole section, that I could have done with more time talking about that. Like, all you really need to do is spot stories in your day-to-day life. Look for opportunities, going to the grocery store, there's a story in there. Going, to your kid's school, whatever, there's stories in every one of those experiences. Yeah, need to make offers, right? That's a really good one too. Like, you have to do that or you can't sell, right? Like, you literally can't make a sale if you're not making offers. So that's key. Telling stories and twists to the business. Yep. Transitions. That's a fun part of this. Can't spell. Funny. That's what we got spell check for. Look. Yeah. Hardest part of CTAs. Yeah, I get that. Practice, and look at examples. You'll have to go back on my timeline a little bit. I kind of slowed down calls to actions in the last probably 6 months on my Facebook timeline. But if you look, 6 to 12 months back, you can see I test everything too. The other thing is, I'll say this for those who stuck around to the end or watch this till the end. This is like an important takeaway too. Everything I said here, I believe works. I use it. It's worked for me, but it also came through trial and error. And I test everything. I challenge everything. I believe nothing from no one on my own without testing it. Like, certain things work for certain people certain ways. And so, man, my calls to action, like, I've tried DM me for more info, Rob. Yeah, I've tried it. It's fine. It's totally fine if you're doing it on purpose. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. Like in a Facebook post, you will find that most of your calls to action don't work super well. Like, if you don't have a highly engaged audience who's, on the right end of the awareness curve, basically ready to buy from you, offer posts get penalized. Calls to action probably reduce engagement. So, like, there's so much to talk about here, but like, sometimes you cannot do calls to actions on your posts to just test, see what happens, see what engagement looks like compared to when you do have a call to action. I think this totally works on LinkedIn. You just need to be careful about the style. That's it. You find the style that works. I've seen it work on LinkedIn. I know people who are doing it, you know. You have the same basic concepts. Like, these are social media platforms. They want people to be social. They don't want to be spammed with links and offers and all that stuff all the time. So like, you have to find the blend and the balance. This is a totally different totally different topic. It's very much related to this, but I guess the point is test everything. Try a whole bunch of different calls to actions. I used to put links directly in the post. I've tried that. Didn't seem like it worked very well, but I'm not sure it was a whole lot worse than putting the link in the first comment, which I'm not sure was a whole lot worse than, you know, DM me for more info. Like, test it, you know, see what happens. Yeah. And to be clear, like I said, I'm no expert on the algorithm, but I play one sometimes on videos like this. It's, you know, it's, people are not, like, Facebook is not supposed to replicate Amazon. They're not going there to shop for something. So, you know, it should be different. You know, the content that wins should be a little different than what you see on Facebook or on Amazon, you know. So it makes perfect sense. And you just gotta, like I said, just be doing stuff on purpose. Don't include calls to action sometimes. See how that does. Heck, even, you know, try a week later. I've never actually done this, but mostly because I'm lazy. But, well, I guess you could actually post the exact same post with and without a call to action and test that. I'm pretty sure Facebook penalizes a copy. So the reason I said I'm lazy is because I think you have to change it substantially, but you could do a variation on an existing post, like with and without a call to action. Yeah. See in the comments there on offers for sure. All right, cool. I'm gonna say kind of gone here. If anybody wants to pop off mute and ask anything, let me know. Yeah, post with a link, 1 to 2%. I think is probably about right. Yeah, I kind of play bass. I play guitar fairly a lot. When the bass mostly sits there. But every now and then I do recordings on this same computer when I have free time, which has not been for a while. Nice. Got a little banjo back there. I don't play much either, but. All right, cool. I'm going to sign off. I probably better jump. This was awesome for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got a bunch of value and stuff you can use. And we'll look forward to circling back in the heartbeat and do that homework. I want to see some people win the audit session. Awesome. I'll stop sharing and I will say bye. Bye all.